Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Delighted to be here, and my sincere congratulations on your corporate 10th anniversary. Very impressive, and then a highly topical issue actually to discuss how we can work together, the public sector and private sector. I'm going to talk about transforming supply chain for the public good, and I'm very pleased that I'm able to do that in English actually, although I have a German name and I was born in Indonesia. My personal supply chain is a bit murky, so I'm glad to talk about transparent supply chains and how we can transform them to yield public good returns. So let's quickly move actually why there's an urgency for change and where we stand on this globe at the moment with the major challenges we talked earlier about through the previous speakers. 9 billion people, these facts are all known. 70% of them will work and live in cities, in huge megacities, changing the dietary habits, increased consumption and energy use in emerging economies, increased adverse impacts with huge social costs and on biodiversity. So these are all huge issues which are compounded actually by scarcity of raw materials, which is basically business interest, ultimately leading to sustained high agro-commodity prices. Ladies and gentlemen, we're currently consuming 1.5 planets for our current production and consumption. Business as usual is not a scenario going forward. And there are even more fanatics, perhaps, that claim that we are already using 3 planets for satisfying our current consumption patterns. This is clearly not sustainable. So, if this is the basic analysis, and whether you're a fanatic or a pragmatist, this is a worrisome scenario. So if you want to change, and there's clearly an urgency for change, what are the drivers for change? And is business actually part of the problem, or could it be part of the solution? We used actually this model of WWF, and Jason Clay, you may know him from the TED Talks, and I would encourage you actually to watch him on the TED Talks. Business has great leverage to change for the good. On the one hand, you have 7 billion consumers. On the other hand, the other side of the global value chains, of the supply chains, you have 1.5 billion primary producers, mostly smallholder producers, who actually are producing on a 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5 hectares, not more, yielding some result, gaining some livelihood, far from decent. But the good news is that there are 200 multinational companies engaged in half of the world's production and trade in the key 15 commodities. Which are those? Those are grains, beef, soy, aquaculture, the protein. And that's actually where the value chain analysis comes in as a driver for positive change. Is that we think that business has a great leverage and that they could become part of the solution if used properly and if you connect actually with the main drivers for business, the commercial incentives we talked about as well. Think about, for instance, the Consumer Goods Forum. Consumer Goods Forum represents 400 major brand companies in this world, represent 5 trillion of US turnover. That's 5% of global GDP. These people and these companies have pledged through their CEOs that by 2020 their supply chain should become deforestation-free. So that's a huge leverage. If you can have a consensus view among business to transform their supply chains towards deforestation, you can gain traction for the public good, but you have to provide them the right incentives. So it is not only about a single company, it is about sector transformation. And it is our claim that if you go through this model of innovation towards sustainability, that you start with an initiation phase. There are 1 or 2 CEOs who actually claim that sustainability, sustainable sourcing, is a key strategic interest of the company, then others will follow, and somehow you gain more traction. You enter into a sector transformation phase, and in the end it becomes a license to operate. And it becomes self-propelled. And it's our claim that if you have 30 to 40% of a market, then sustainability becomes self-propelled. And you see a number of CEOs who actually are front-runners. Paul Pullman, the CEO of Unilever, is such a guy. He has a mission. But he is not only missionary, and he's working in the UN high-level panel on the Sustainable Development Goals. So he has this public mentality. But he says it's business as well for me. You know, there's a commercial incentive. If you take, for instance, the cocoa sector, everyone knows in the cocoa sector that there will be, in the long term, a shortage of 1 million cocoa tons. You can't reach that by yourself. Even Mars, which is one of the biggest players, or Hershey, another big player, they can't do it by themselves because the challenges on the ground, and cocoa is mainly produced in West Africa or Indonesia, you can't cope with those challenges by yourself. You need sector market transformation. Nor can the companies do it by themselves. They need to be incentivized for yielding public returns. Because I think there's a great interest to merging, actually, public and the private interest. Companies clearly seek security of supply. They seek to reduce and mitigate their reputational risk. But on the other hand, that in itself will not ensure that transformation will lead to yielding public returns. Would in itself those transformational incentives for the business sector lead to improvement of smallholder livelihoods? I doubt it. So what we try to do is marry the interest of the public sector and the private sector. License to operate, security of supply, and for the public sector, poverty reduction, economic growth, conserving the environment, and especially in terms of mining, geopolitical access to resources is a huge issue. So we think that in our theory of change at IDH, the Sustainable Trade Initiative, a business case for public-private partnership should be clearly embedded in the interest of the public sector as well as the private sector. But even then, I think you need NGOs, and that's why we always come up with this triangle of cooperation. Why do we need NGOs? They might pressure companies. They are clearly societal watchdogs. They have a good know-how of the field, so they could be great implementing partners. So basically, if you want to transform markets, we think you need government, you need the public sector, you need enabling policies, you need incentives, but you need business for the value chain and the transformative power of value chain, production, investment, procurement, as well as NGOs. So there's an old African verb: if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And we clearly think that sustainability is an issue for the long term, which you can only achieve by working together. So here we are. This is the theory of change that IDH was founded on, and we're now a public-private partnership facility funded by the Dutch, the Swiss and the Danish from ODA funds. We achieve impact on MDGs 1, 7 and 8, and in the future on the Sustainable Development Goals, and we work in 80 commodity chains, 50 countries. Why is it so important for us to be here as well? Because we think by leveraging an internal market, EU market of 450 million consumers, we can have global impact. Hence, working, elevating IDH from a Dutch, Swiss, Danish vehicle to a pan-European vehicle for transformative change is extremely important. What are our roles? And I'll name a few. First of all, convening. You might say, you know, you're working with these companies, whether it's small or large, they can work together pretty well, they know each other, so they should be able, by working together, to transform their markets. But what we experience in practice is actually that these companies need a neutral facilitator, actually, to be able to work pre-competitively together. Why? To build sector programs with clear indicators, not only for the business, but for the public good, clear indicators on yield improvement, on productivity, so that smallholder farmers gain a better life, on gender. So there we come in, you know, with working with the private sector, we clearly need yield improvement to secure the future supply, but what we bring in are some public good targets. How do we incentivize the public sector? It's by investing. So every euro we employ from our donor funds should be matched by the private sector. Should at least be 50% matched by the private sector. And so to secure and ensure additionality, those funds are third-party audited. So we want to clearly establish that our joint investments in our programs yield public good returns. We're moving slowly, but surely, I would say, from grant assistance to loan assistance. And because this leverage, and with reducing development funds, it's good to provide grant assistance for good agriculture practices to smallholder farmers, for instance, so that they will produce more and in a more environmentally friendly way, reducing social costs. But actually what we have noticed, if you're growing towards the P&L, the profit and loss of the company, you're not granting money into the programs, but you provide a grant for technical assistance, but incentivize the business community to put a loan into the program, then they get actually a real interest in return. And then they will make the program a success. And we will jointly reach the KPIs we have set in our ambitious sustainability programs. So IDH is not an implementer. We're a neutral convener. We build ambitious programs for yielding public returns. We learn from practices and we try to disseminate those practices and turn them into new innovative approaches, like from grant assistance to blending. But we're not implementing ourselves, so we use other implementing partners. It could be Technoserve, that could be Swiss Contact, that could be Solidaridad, who have more knowledge and experience on the ground as an implementing partner to make our programs a success. What are the key success factors? A strong business case. If there's no commercial incentive, if it's not better for the P&L of a company, it's just not sustainable in itself. You need committed market leaders. You need CEOs who actually at boardroom level drive sustainability throughout the company. In our experience, we have noticed that the companies need a neutral convener to work pre-competitively together towards sustainability. Match funding helps, so it is a catalyst. It accelerates transformative change to reach scale to reach impact at scale, and learning and innovation remains an issue which companies in themselves will not provide, but is very good, is very well done through a neutral public facility like a PPP. What drives PPPs forward? Agriculture and development and emerging economies is clearly underserved so far by financial markets. And while the global mega trends I earlier described at the beginning of my talk require a massive flow of capital into agriculture, and we aim to catalyze the market and establish good practice. What is a push factor here? There are limited ODA funds available, but they need to be catalyzed towards more public good through private sector engagement. Impact studies so far show that indeed impact to reach scale and to reach impact on the ground is possible. We continue to issue third-party impact studies to seek actually whether this new innovative approach of working together with the private sector yields the kind of public good results we seek to achieve with our public funding. And for the moment, we are extremely encouraged by the first impact study results that have become available. Again, we're here to seek a broader partnership with other European donors, actually, to leverage the huge internal EU market to bring systemic change towards sustainability at a global level. And I think by working jointly as donors together, we can create more effectiveness and more impact at scale. Thank you.